We chose what we could see and touch, thrones and crowns and the strength of man. And slowly our hearts were shaped by that choice, till injustice grew where trust had been. From king to king, the wound went deep, till the land itself could no longer stand. What began as a wish to be like the world ended with chains and a foreign land. You did not choose us to blend in or measure ourselves by the nation's gain. You chose us to carry your name alive, to show the world what it means to live by faith, to walk in justice, mercy, truth, to trust our King, though unseen, to be a kingdom under your rule, a people holy, set apart and free. We were called to be yours alone, set apart, known by your name, not like the nations, not like the world, but a people who walk in your ways.
From the far edge of the Northlands, God comes with lightning speed. As the Lord of many peoples, blind with pride and drunk with greed. Shields like shadows, spears like thunder, horses black against the dawn. All their banners set for plunder, all their hatred driving on. They say, now we take the mountains, now we strip the peaceful land. Now we fall upon the people, gathered by a greater hand. Like a storm they roll in fury, drive the horde with frightful aim. But they do not know the Holy One, and they do not know His name. They come against the peaceful dwellings, against the land restored from war, against the fields, against the shepherds, brought back home forevermore. They thought the stillness meant no power, they thought the silence meant no king. They did not hear the wrath behind it, nor the storm their feet would bring. Then the jealousy of Yahweh kindled, and the mountains reeled in dread. Every creature felt the trembling, every tower bowed its head. Cliffs were torn and walls were broken, all the proud things of man fell low. For the God who planted Israel rose against the host below. I will make known my holy name in the midst of Israel. I will rise in fire and fury, and the nations all shall tell. There is no battle line. Blood and plague ran through the camp, hail and fire split the sky. Sulfur burned upon the riders, banners dropped into the flame. On the mountains of my people, judgment fell on those to blame. So the armies of the Northlands fell upon the heights they cursed, and the land they came to ravage, saw the hand of Yahweh striking first. Vows were shattered, pride was swallowed, all their boasting turned to smoke. Not by mortal strength were they broken, but by every word he spoke. Then the nations looked and trembled, then remnants Israel could see. He who gathered is their keeper, he who planted set them free, and his holy name was lifted in the sight of earth and sky. For the God of Israel still reigns with all power from on high. I will make known my holy name in the midst of Israel. I will rise in fire and fury, and the nations all shall tell. There is none above the heavens, there is none of greater fame. I will defend my chosen people, I will sanctify my name. I will sanctify my name. From the north they came with violence, on the hills their strength was slain. Yahweh rose in wrath and glory, now the nations know his name.
When the thunder has fallen silent, when the smoke has cleared away, still your glory fills the heavens, still your truth outshines the day. You are holy in your judgment, you are faithful, you are true. You defend the ones you gather, there is none like you. You are mighty in the mountains, you are mercy to the weak. You remember every promise, you are near to those who seek. You restore the lost and broken, you bring life where hope was through. You are shepherd, king and keeper, there is none like you. There is none like you, oh Yahweh, none above you, none beside. Holy, righteous, everlasting, Lord of power, Lord of Let the remnant sing your praises. Let the coastlands hear your voice. Let the kings of earth be humbled. Let the waiting hearts rejoice. From the valleys to the heavens, let your praise the whole earth move. Well known, our God forever. There is none like you. Will prevail, you strengthen, you help, you stay. You never turn your face away. I will wait for Yahweh. I will rise again. You renew the weak. You strengthen the spent. I will mount up with wings like eagles.
Welcome, I'm Dawn.
I'm Eliyahu, and this is Zion Tabernacle of Greater Austin, Texas.
Are you among the remnant on the narrow road to life?
Do you long for the deeper truth only the remnant grasp?
Then Zion is the place for you. Now, here's spiritual food at the right time.
Welcome, friends. We're so glad you're with us. And we have a very important message to share with you tonight. I think all of us will be blessed by this message. Before we get into it, though, we just need to explain a few things to you. You might have been expecting tonight to see our ladies' talk program, which normally is in this time slot. And of course, Abigail hosts that. And Abigail is also the host of our radio station. She's our radio station manager, in fact. And she's making some changes at Zion Road Radio. We're bringing on some new programming on the radio station, and she's moving her program, Messiah's Praiseworthy Women of Israel, onto the radio. So from now forward, you can find that program on the schedule at zion.org, tsion.org, and you'll be able to continue on with the same wonderful program that Abigail puts out each month, along with special guests, maybe you, we hope so, on the radio. And we're really excited about this because we kind of feel like this will draw more women to come and enjoy this wonderful program on Zion Road Radio. So share about it with your friends too and point them there. I know they will enjoy the program too. Our presentation tonight is entitled Unbelief is a Monster. Remnant believers are now standing on the verge of the great remnant return, foretold by all of the prophets. And if you've been following the news, you can see that there is a tendency in the affairs of the world that is unmistakably bringing us closer and closer to the signs that are prophesied in Scripture to happen that will bring in that great call to the remnant nation to return to our land. We are getting closer and closer to that. This puts us in a very similar place to the second generation of national Israel, standing on the very verge of entering into the land. At that very critical moment, Moses paused to instruct Israel with a message they needed to hear to make that bold step. The remnant today need to hear that same message once again. We call that message Deuteronomy. We will delve into the first chapter now, and at the end, we'll be topping off the message with an inspiring new song that I think you'll enjoy. Now, unbelief is a monster. Let's get into our material now on the book of Deuteronomy. If you knew that you were being stalked by an enemy with the power to destroy your greatest opportunities, an enemy that could turn your blessings into curses and your greatest victory into miserable defeat, an enemy that could rob your life of all purpose, leaving you in complete and utter vanity, would you want that enemy to be revealed so that you could guard yourself against that enemy? If I told you that you have such an enemy right now, would you believe it? Mind you, I'm not speaking about the devil. I'm speaking of a much more powerful enemy than the devil. You do have such an enemy. And in the opening chapters of Deuteronomy, your worst enemy is about to be revealed. I have some help in going into this material now, and I'd like to introduce Brother Mike. He's here with me in the studio. And Mike, welcome.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Well, let me tell you about a few of the points that we've got going on tonight. The name of this book is actually, the Hebrew name is Devarim, and it means words. And it comes from the first verse of Deuteronomy, where it says, "These are the words of Moses." But the word Deuteronomy, now that's different. That's a Greek word, and that essentially means repetition. And that refers to the fact that this particular book, Deuteronomy, is really repeating the main points of the rest of the Torah, but in a much more concise format that is going to, I think, sort of boil things down for you and help you to get the heart of the Torah. This is in the form of a farewell address by Moses to the Israelites before they entered the Promised Land. Mike, can you think of any reasons why we would want to hear that address?
Well, Moses was a man who walked with Yahweh And he had a lot of experience with what he did.
That's right. So we could learn a lot from Moses, and I think particularly the last things he had to say to our nation are very important. And I think it's important, too, to realize that they were right on the border of the Promised Land, about to enter in. And in a way, it's kind of like the remnant. We're hoping to enter into the land ourselves very soon in the remnant Exodus. So all these same principles that he's unpacking for us in the book of Deuteronomy, they're important for us too.
And he really cared about Israel. And he knew that he wasn't going to be able to lead them into the promised land and be able to lead them afterwards. So he wanted to leave something important that they could follow.
Absolutely right. So this has vital information for us right now that will help us to understand more about the covenant that Israel has with Yahweh and where we fit into that, and the things that are really essential for us as we prepare to enter into the land. We start out in today's lesson with a recap of Israel's 40-year journey from Horeb, and we're going to explain more about that. And by the end of our discussion today, your worst enemy will be revealed. So let's now dive right into this. Okay, so we'll read the first verse. And Mike, you want to read that?
Sure. These are the words which Moses spoke to all Israel beyond the Jordan in the wilderness, in the Arabah over against the Suf, between Paran, Tophel, Laban, Hazoreth, and the Zahab.
Okay, so I have a little map here that basically shows you where they were at this time. And as you can see, this is just slightly above the Dead Sea. And this is opposite Jericho, which is in the land across the Jordan. This is where these words are being spoken. Now, we have more. Let's go on with our next verse. This looks kind of complicated, and it is. And you can see on the bottom of the screen here, we have a link. So I would suggest that you copy that link down, and if you can't get it all right now, we will have this recording up and you can get it, and then you can read all these details. Basically, this is explaining verse 2, which says, "It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea." So we're showing now in this purple line this 11 days journey between these 2 points. Now this is important because this is where they started out. This is at Horeb or Mount Sinai, and this is where they ended up at Kadesh Barnea, and it's only 11 days journey, and they had wandered 40 years. What do you think of that?
When I was reading this whole passage, I was kind of thinking about that. It just reminded me of just Yahweh bringing them through this wilderness, training them each and every step of the way. It's like he had checkpoints along the way for them to give them the lessons that they needed.
That's very true. And, well, the truth is it's kind of boring for them because they had really a much better opportunity and they missed it. But we'll get back to that momentarily. Now, this is actually the same verse. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb. Kadesh Barnea is pictured here. It's actually the modern day term or name is Petra. And you've probably heard of Petra. Petra means rock because this is the place where Moses brought water out of the rock. Now, a lot of times people think the rock had to be some little rock that he hit. How is that going to provide enough water for millions of people and all their cattle?
Definitely not. And, in all the movies that I've seen, you had 20, 30 people and a little rock.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, it's believed by many of the people that live in that area and others who have researched this that this gorge called the Sig is actually where Moses struck the rock and it split. And an incredible amount of water gushed forth out of this. I've actually been there, and there are no pictures that actually give you the sense of what it's like to go through that gorge. It's just amazing. It goes up so high, and you've got this steep wall on both sides of you. And I went through there on horseback, and it was just such an amazing thing. And then you come out the end, as you see in this picture here, and directly across from you is this amazing temple that was cut out of the rock. This is not built. This is not something that was built. It was literally chiseled out of the rock and into the rock. You can go inside of this, and there's these big rooms in there. We have another picture you might want to see, and that's a picture of the temple. And you can kind of see the scale of this by looking at the people in the bottom of the picture. So if you're there, the hugeness of this is amazing. You feel like a little ant because that stone wall goes up so very, very high. Ancient literary sources say that Petra is one and the same with Kadesh Barnea. And both Eusebius and Jerome said that, and Josephus also said that, and they all said that Kadesh is Petra. And really, they had more information at that time than what we have now. So there are other guesses as to what Kadesh Barnea is and where it's located. But really, when you consider the ancient sources that identify this for us, it's quite clear that this is the place. And there's a lot of good reasons why it would be the place. Look at the scale of this place. And then we have this. When you go through there, it is quite amazing. Now, I think you can see, if you have a big enough TV, some of the people that are standing in the entrances to these caves. Now, realize all of these caves, and many more than you see in this picture, were actually carved out of the rock. And there's enough room in all of these caves for at least many thousands of people to live in those caves. It's huge. So this is a place that provided all kinds of space, a wonderful spot, really, for Israel there in Kadesh Barnea. And this is where they were at the time they were given the opportunity to go into the promised land. So it's really quite amazing, quite an amazing place. And you think we'll ever get to go there?
I hope so.
I believe we all who are of the remnant will get to go there. And I think it's going to be pretty awesome. Okay, so let's get into now our next verse. And Mike, would you read that for us?
Sure. In the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all that Yahweh had given him in commandment to them, after he had struck Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth at Edrei.
Og was a giant, and so also was this other creature, Sihon, the king of the Amorites, and they were what in earlier times were called Nephilim. And they were just nasty, mean creatures, and they dominated that whole area. And Israel had come in there. Now realize this is on the east side of the Jordan, so it's not even in what was called the Promised Land yet. And Israel defeated them completely, just totally routed them and took possession of all that territory along the east side of the Jordan River in what is the modern-day state of Jordan. So quite amazing.
You know, these seem like really nasty creatures, and it's just something that had to be dealt with right away. There wasn't any waiting.
Right. And Yahweh wanted to wipe these guys out because they were freaks. And I mean that in the worst possible way. And I use that word on purpose because they were offspring of the offspring of fallen angels and human women, something that Yahweh never intended to have happen. And really just a terrible, terrible thing to have here in the earth. So this was part of Israel's duty to wipe them out and wipe out the very wicked civilization that they fostered. Realize that in the time we're talking about here where Moses is giving this speech, this has been done already, and they have already conquered all of that territory. And this is in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month. So this is essentially 1 month short of the 40 years that they wandered in the wilderness. This is beyond the Jordan in the land of Moab. Moses began to declare this Torah, saying, Yahweh our Elohim spoke to us in Horeb, saying, You have lived long enough at this mountain. Turn and take your journey and go to the hill country of the Amorites, and to all the places near there in the Arabah, in the hill country, and in the lowland, and in the south, and by the seashore, the land of the Canaanites, and Lebanon, as far as the great river, and the river Euphrates. So this is how they had finally ended up where they ended up at Kadesh Barnea, because they went to all of these different places. Perhaps you could read the next verse for us.
Yahweh our Elohim spoke to us in Horeb, saying, Behold, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them and to their seed after them, about 2 years after leaving Egypt.
Now, isn't that amazing when you really think about what had happened? Because we're saying 2 years from the time we had the first Passover, the next day they left Egypt, until now it's 40 years less 1 month later, and Moses is talking to them. That's the whole 40-year period. And the period to Kadesh Barnea, where they're about to go in and take the land, that's only a little bit more, just a little bit more than 2 years. 2 years. In 2 years, they were set completely free from Egypt, brought out of Egypt, brought through the Red Sea, went to Mount Sinai, and met Yahweh there, entered into the covenant. The Mishkan and all of the sacrificial system was set up and started. They were all organized in their tribes and in their army. And then now they're ready to go fight in 2 years. I think that's astounding.
You know, I think that's really encouraging to us today, because just seeing that and how hopeless things may have looked to them at the time. And then, you know, we could think how things are looking to us right now. And then once Yahweh starts moving, then things can really pick up fast.
That's really what happened for them, because like one day they're slaves like they have been for hundreds of years, right? Nothing has changed. All of a sudden Moses shows up and everything starts to change. And in a very short time, all of this happens. And all for a purpose. They were told through it all that Yahweh was taking them to the land he had promised their forefathers, and he was going to give them that land. So all of this was with that purpose of going in to take that land, to possess that land. And now, after just 2 years, Yahweh is commanding them to go in and take it. We have a picture. We see they've all got their spears. They're all ready to go in. They've all been organized in their armies. They could have done it. They could have walked right in there. But here's what happened. Verse 9 through 11. I spoke to you at that time, saying, I'm not able to bear you myself alone. Yahweh, your Elohim, has multiplied you, and behold, you are today as the stars of the sky for multitude. Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, make you 1,000 times as many as you are, and bless you as he's promised you. How can I myself alone bear your problems, your burdens, and your strife? So this happened before Yahweh commanded them to go into the land, and that's included within the 2 years that Moses was feeling somewhat overwhelmed by all of their problems, and he could not bear it alone. And he wasn't scolding them. Do you notice what he is saying here? He's giving them a blessing even while he's telling them about the burden. And we have more about this here. Perhaps you'd like to read verse 13 for us.
Take wise men of understanding and well known according to your tribes, and I will make them heads over you.
Yes, and it says, you answered me and said, the thing which you have spoken is good to do. So Moses told them what to do, and they agreed to it. And you notice how Moses did this. I mean, even though he had authority to choose who he wanted to choose, he said to them, take wise and understanding men, well known according to your tribe. So apparently they told Moses the men that they thought would be good, the people that they had trust in. And then Moses says, I'll make them heads over you. So he's putting them now as heads within their individual tribes, and these are people that are already approved. And I think that's a pretty good picture of the order of Israel. Generally, this is how that should be done, that there should be leaders that the people have trust in. The word heads here simply is Rosh, and it's a general term of a head. So it refers to a tribal head, in this case, like a chief, a tribal chief.
I was doing a little reading in the New Testament scriptures, and in 1 Timothy, it talks about setting up overseers over the assembly. And, reading that, I kind of had a new perspective of seeing the assembly as really a nation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the same thing that they did in Deuteronomy that Paul was instructing to be done in the assembly in the first century.
Absolutely the same thing, because this term, Rosh, or head, can be even translated as overseer. So it actually, what happened in the first century is they were following this model. And when Messiah had really renewed Israel, this is the model that he followed. So there were 12 tribes, there were 12 tribal heads, and then they were at other intervals. We'll read about that now. It says here in verse 15, so I took the heads of your tribes, so that's the tribal heads, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains of thousands, captains of hundreds, and captains of 50s, captains of 10, and officers according to your tribes. So as we look at these words, we have this word head several times. We also have the word captain several times and the word officer. And what this is actually saying to us, the first time it uses the word heads, it's talking about the heads of the tribes. So these are the tribal heads who basically were selected by the people, I would say, in a sense, nominated by the people, and then Moses made the final appointment. And then he says he's going to take those heads and make them heads over you. So he's taking those heads of the tribes, and now he's making them part of the national government. So they're national heads. And that's why he uses the word captains, because the word captain is referring to military terms like captain, general, or commander, and also general official terms like chief, head, and overseer. So these are all part of, you could call it the national framework, the national government from the tribes. And it says here thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. So it's incremented down, so there are wise men at all of these levels, thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. So if you're an Israelite and you need some direction, are you going to know where to find it?
Absolutely.
So this is Yahweh's plan, is to have heads. And the way this is done is with such wisdom, because the people who are the heads are people you already know. They're people that you have confidence in, people that care about you and you care about them. They're really part of your family if they're in the same tribe as you.
Right. So, like parents, grandparents, people like that.
Right, yes, cousins too, and so on, according to your tribes. So it's very interesting here, except at the highest level of this, the people that would be overseers over you are all your people from your tribe. And I think that's pretty awesome. But at the higher level here, where you have these officers, all of these officers, the 12 officers that are essentially over the 12 tribes, they also work together. They form a council along with other top elders under Moses in order to coordinate all of the national issues. So you have a balance here. You have people that, the everyday people, what are they interested in? They're interested in their own lives, the people around them, their own tribe, their own clan, their own family. But are they going to be safe if that's all they think about? What do they need?
They need higher leadership.
They really do. They need to have leaders that are concerned about the nation as a whole and fulfilling Yahweh's national purpose.
I think it's amazing how Yahweh really had all this covered. So you have the personal level covered, and we all need personal help sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you move up, you have the national level covered.
Mm-hmm.
So really all the bases are covered here for propelling the nation forward, a healthy nation, really.
Really, a very healthy nation and a family, really structured as a big family, the family, in fact, of Jacob, right? It's the best government that has ever existed. Absolutely the best government that has ever existed. There's more. Moses goes on saying, I commanded your judges at that time, saying, hear cases between your brothers and judge righteously between a man and his brother and the foreigner who is living with him. You judge between brothers. Who are brothers?
Family.
Right, your family, which would mean fellow Israelites.
Right.
And so this is how it's done. And normally, in most cases, it's probably going to be someone from your own tribe, because this is where people are going to be spending most of their effort. So you need someone who's going to judge righteously. What does it mean to judge righteously?
Well, righteous judgment, not showing partiality, judging the way Yahweh would judge a matter, not taking bribes.
Right. Yeah, because here's the thing. Righteously essentially means right, and right means Yahweh's way, and Yahweh's way of judging is written into the Torah. There are very specific instructions about how to judge. Now, these judges do have authority. As it mentions here, this is from the word shafat, and it means to pronounce sentence for or against. So when they hear the cases, hear witnesses, hear everything, and there's a judgment, their ability is to vindicate or to punish, and by extension to govern. So these men do have authority, and where does that authority come from?
From Yahweh.
It does. And it comes from two places, really. It comes from Yahweh, but it also comes from the people, because they agree to be part of this system. Do you think they could just say to the judge, well, I don't like your sentence here, so I think I'm going to just walk away and become a part of another nation?
Well, no, not if they want to reap the benefits of being an Israelite.
That's right. And really, they couldn't do that because there's a covenant. And, this is the thing that's probably different than most countries. That for Israel was in a covenant and is in a covenant with Yahweh. And when you're in a covenant, you're bound by that covenant. You have a priority with that covenant, and particularly with Yahweh, because we all owe him so much. We owe him our very lives. So, it's kind of different being part of Israel than the way like a lot of modern people think, because it's not like optional. There's not somewhere else to go, is there? It's Yahweh's nation. It's his only nation. He doesn't have any other nation.
Right.
Let's go on. Would you read these verses for us?
Verse 17. You shall not show partiality in judgment. You shall hear the small and the great alike. You shall not be afraid of the face of a man, for the judgment is Elohim's. The case that is too hard for you, you shall bring to me, and I will hear it. Verse 18. I commanded you at that time all the things which you should do.
Now, basically what Moses is doing here is he's reminding them that before they were ever commanded to go in the land, he already had done all this with them. That, in other words, he had already totally organized them to be able to go into the land and take it. They had the leadership they needed. They had it all together. That's why in verse 18 it says, I commanded you at that time all the things which you should do. He's saying you were ready. Everything was ready here. You had the men in place. You had the leadership in place. Everything was ready here. And of course, the points you were making are in here about the judgment, no partiality, small and great, judged alike. Don't be intimidated. Of course, no bribery. And if you don't know the answer, don't guess.
Yeah.
In judgment, if you don't know the answer, don't guess. There are specific rules here. There has to be 2 or 3 witnesses, for example, in severe cases. And so if it is too hard, what were they going to do?
They're going to have to take it to Moses.
Right. That's right. They'd have to kick it up the line. And then we have a number of examples in the rest of the Torah where this happened. Moses went to Yahweh, and then Yahweh said, Moses, do this.
Right. You know, and bringing up the New Testament again, I read some verses in 1 Corinthians talking about believers essentially doing the same thing, setting up judges and not having their cases judged by unbelievers. And, you know, these words that are highlighted here about not showing partiality, hear the small and the great alike, don't be afraid of the face of a man. These are all things that the judges of the nations do wrong. They show partiality. They favor people with money.
Right.
You know, they are fearful of people with money making death threats. So anyone in the assembly, why would you want to take it to anyone else?
Well, you're going to get a much more fair hearing with your brothers,
That's for sure.
according to the scriptures, who will be looking to Yahweh for his wisdom. Nevertheless, I think this could seem scary to some people, you know, because we are talking about rebuilding Yahweh's nation, the remnant nation under Yeshua Messiah. And all of these same principles must be applied for Yahweh's nation to be rebuilt. And the scriptures promise leaders like this, righteous leaders who will love the flock and care for the flock, but who do have authority. And that is very scary to people. Why do you think that could be scary to some people?
Well, I think there's been a lot of spiritual abuse in the past. If you're Yahweh's man and you do something wrong, there is repercussions. You know, it's Yahweh's true authority is not like a blank check. I mean, think about Moses. Moses made a mistake and he couldn't enter into the promised land.
Right.
So there is quite a lot of accountability there for someone who is appointed by Yahweh.
You know, what you're saying is so true, because the world would look at someone like Moses as not having any accountability. They'd say, well, who is he accountable to? Because there's nobody telling him what to do. Well, there is somebody telling him what to do. Yahweh's telling him what to do. Yahweh is able to enforce that, as you're saying. And that's how it is with Israel. Yahweh is very personally involved with the leaders of Israel. And as we read through the scriptures, we find this. And we find him reprimanding certain people. We find him commending certain leaders. And always there with wisdom, because he cares about his nation. He loves his nation. The whole reason why he wanted to put righteous leaders into all of these places in Israel is so that his people would have some place to go, right?
Right, right.
When they had problems, could get those problems solved, could deal with things. And he has given, Ephesians chapter 4, he's given gifts in men.
Right.
In other words, the men themselves are the gifts to his people. And we can count on that as he raises up his nation, he's going to bring men who are gifted with abilities and with the temperament and with the moral fortitude to be righteous judges. And in a world like we have today, with the corrupt leadership in the world, how much do we really need to have a nation of people that truly is walking in righteousness with righteous leadership at every level?
You know, it really gives an answer to the evil in the world.
I think it really does, and I think it also provides a place. It's just like Yahweh to provide a place in the midst of this dark world where people can run to know him and to really have some shelter from the storm, because the storm is here.
I think that really expresses his love.
It does. It totally expresses his love. That's what it's all about. It's what it's all about. Well, it goes on. It says, we traveled from Horeb and went through all that great and terrible wilderness which you saw, by the way to the hill country of the Amorites, as Yahweh our Elohim commanded us, and we came to Kadesh Barnea. So that's all that 11 days journey that we looked at on the map earlier, all the way from Horeb to Kadesh Barnea. And here is a view from Petra, Kadesh Barnea, into the land of Israel. As you can see, it's wide open before you up in that area of Petra. You can look out over the Jordan River and just see this panorama of the land of Israel before your face. You want to read 20 and 21, please?
I said to you, you have come to the hill country of the Amorites, which Yahweh our Elohim gives to us. Behold, Yahweh your Elohim has set the land before you. Go up, take possession, as Yahweh the Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you. Don't be afraid, neither be dismayed.
Why shouldn't they be afraid?
Well, what about all the wonders that Yahweh's done through those 2 years through the wilderness, and also what he did to the Egyptians?
What about butterflies? When people have a big thing like this to do, don't they sometimes have some butterflies?
Yeah.
Is that being afraid?
No, that's just your natural reaction of your body.
Exactly.
You know, that happens to all of us.
You're not afraid if you actually follow through and do what you need to do. That's not fear. That's having some butterflies. But you're obviously walking in faith if you walk forward and do what you're told. But if you don't, well, that's fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
He goes on, you came near to me, every one of you, and said, let us send men before us, that they may search the land for us and bring us word again of the way by which we must go up and the cities to which we shall come. The thing pleased me, Moses, well. I took 12 men of you, 1 man for every tribe. Any thoughts about these verses?
So it was the people who brought the 12 heads up to Moses. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, men, they wanted someone to go up.
Right.
And I think this is very interesting because Moses was pleased with this, and I can understand that because it seems like they had the intent of going into the land. Myself, I have mixed feelings about this.
Yeah.
Because I think already it's indicating that they had been commanded to go up and take it.
Right.
And there's a hesitancy here, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is being given as a concession that, well, they need to plan and so on.
You know, sometimes, granted, this depends on the situation, but sometimes it's better to just go ahead and do it. That way, you don't have a chance to think about it and get scared. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I think this happens to believers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we are commanded to do something, or we're impressed by the Holy Spirit to do it, but we hesitate. What happens when we hesitate?
Fear creeps in.
Fear, all kinds of stuff, really. All kinds of stuff comes into our head. And not only that, but Satan's very active.
Right.
He'll send things along to stop us. So I think, the scripture talks about hear and obey. And these folks would have done a lot better if that's what they did.
And they haven't had the best track record.
Right.
So maybe this was giving them an opportunity gave them an opportunity to be fearful and lack faith.
I think so. And realize this was the whole purpose why they were released from Egypt, right? That's what they were thinking all along. This is what they were going to do, is go in and take this land. Now it's in front of them. Everything's been prepared for them to be able to do it. They've been organized to do it. They're told to go in. But no, we've got to see it first. We've got to understand this. We've got to understand this. Did they really have to understand this in order to win the battles?
That wasn't in the instruction.
Particularly in Western countries, we're like this.
Yeah.
We've been trained to be like this, really. That we have to understand everything before we will go ahead. And that might be okay, like with other people and stuff. With Yahweh, that's not okay, because he knows all kinds of stuff you don't know.
And I feel like when you start taking that step forward, if there are things you need to know, Yahweh will reveal them to you. And, we're going to read further on when they do take the promised land that Yahweh did have some specific instructions for them.
Right.
And no doubt if this generation went to take the promised land, Yahweh would have had specific instructions for them as they were moving towards it.
Right, exactly. I think there's a very big lesson in this, in what they did, and this hesitating in order to understand better is really not a great idea when you have a command from Yahweh. There are times when you don't know what to do, and that's a different thing. You have to stop. You have to pray. That's not what I'm talking about. It says, they turned and went up into the hill country and came to the valley of Escol and spied it out. They took some of the fruit of the land in their hands and brought it down to us, and brought us word again and said, it is a good land which Yahweh our Elohim gives to us. So was Yahweh lying to him when he told him it was a good land?
No.
No. No. It's a good land.
Yeah.
And they found out it was a good land. They saw that it was a good land. So I think that's so important. When Yahweh tells you something, friend, just believe him. Just believe him. He's not going to lie to you. He doesn't lie. He's not a man that he should lie. Yet you wouldn't go up. You wouldn't go up, but rebelled against the commandment of Yahweh your Elohim. I can't imagine what Moses was thinking when this happened. You murmured in your tents and said, because Yahweh hated us, he has brought us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. Well, what do you think of that idea?
I don't know where they got that idea, to be honest. I know this has been a common theme throughout the past 2 years that we've read in the scriptures, and I don't know where it comes from,
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe it comes from their experiences when they were in Egypt. Probably sometimes some of their taskmasters were nice to them just to get what they wanted,
Okay.
and then hurt them. Doesn't this happen to some of our people?
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of experiences that we have in the past just affect the way we relate to people. So I could understand that. And I think too, with being brought up in religion, you can, even as you're moving along, you just see Yahweh the wrong way,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's out to get you or something.
I think a lot of us feel like this, and I have known folks that become believers, but they have these moments like this of doubt that Yahweh would love them because, you know all your own faults, right?
Yeah.
How could Yahweh love me? It's such a shame because of the effect that it has. You see, they were murmuring these things and dwelling on these ideas. What was this doing to their confidence regarding entering the land?
It was definitely bringing it down.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a cancer too,
Yeah.
once people start doing it, there's a whole atmosphere of it.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. That is so true.
28. Where are we going up? Our brothers have made our heart melt, saying, the people are greater and taller than we. The cities are great and fortified up to the sky. Moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakim there.
Now there's all kinds of excuses that are arising. The people are greater and taller than we. So does that mean that they can't take the land?
No.
No, no, it doesn't mean that. The cities are great and fortified. Does that mean they can't take the land?
No.
No. What about the sons of Anakim? That's kind of scary. The giants are in there.
They dealt with them before, didn't they?
They did. As a matter of fact, Yahweh said that he would send bees
Yeah.
against the giants. Even giants don't like bees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yahweh has his ways,
Right.
and he could handle it. So Moses goes on, then I said to you, don't dread, neither be afraid of them. Yahweh your Elohim, who goes before you, he will fight for you according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes, and in the wilderness, where you have seen how that Yahweh your Elohim bore you, as a man does bear his son, in all the way that you went until you came to this place. So was Moses buying into all of their discouragement?
No, he was trying as hard as he could to encourage these people and try to remind them and build up their faith.
Right. That's right. And of course, what he's telling them is because of Yahweh, you don't need to be afraid.
Right.
And look at all that Yahweh's already done for them. Was that true?
Absolutely.
So really, what they were saying, would you call it a slander against Yahweh?
I'd have to say so, yeah.
I would too.
Yeah, it's slandering his name because they're going against everything he stands for and what he said, what
Right.
he promised.
Absolutely right. So Moses is trying to help them. And it goes on here. He says, yet in this thing you didn't believe Yahweh, your Elohim, who went before you on the way to seek out a place for you to pitch your tents in fire by night, to show you by what way you should go, and in the cloud by day. So Moses here is explaining to them what has happened for these past 2 years. Yahweh has actually been leading them by a cloud.
Right.
How many people have that happen?
I don't know anybody.
No other people. No other people but this people. And he tenderly cared for them
Yeah.
all along the way for 2 years straight. So this is the problem. They didn't believe Yahweh.
Yeah.
They didn't believe him. If you're Yahweh, how do you feel?
Sad.
Yeah.
It describes the way Yahweh's taking care of them like a son,
Yes.
and there's a verse in Hosea 11:1, when Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. And he just goes on, and he really explains how he treated them like a son, and then Israel went and did this. And he said, yet I taught Ephraim to walk. I took them by the arms, but they didn't know that I healed them.
Yes.
This is just something that's been going on for years and years, the same thing.
This is our fathers who did this, and we really need to take this to heart, that we don't do this. It goes on, it says this, Yahweh heard the voice of your words and was angry and swore, saying, surely not one of these men of this evil generation shall see the good land which I swore to give to your fathers. So is this the angry God of the Old Testament?
What do you mean?
Sounds like a trick question, doesn't
Yeah.
it? The answer is yes. But this is not just the angry God of the Old Testament. This is the angry God of the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Right.
In other words, this is righteous anger
Right.
because really these people deserve for Yahweh to be angry. And in his anger, he told them, you're not going to get this land now. With what you've done, you're not getting this land now.
Yeah.
Does that seem fair?
Yes. Because they really had no excuse.
They didn't.
You know, like I said earlier, I don't really know what to say about it. I mean, we were talking about how maybe it was the way they were treated in Egypt, but obviously what happened was it took a whole generation of living in the wilderness under Yahweh for 40 years. You know, it's hard to change, really.
Right.
And it takes time. And I guess these Israelites, they went through this crash course, if you will, and they couldn't make the cut. It was too much for them. I don't know what else to say, really.
You know what's supposed to happen when we meet Yahweh? You know.
Change.
Change. Listen, when you meet Yahweh, you need to change.
Yeah.
Because he's not the people that abused you in the past. And he doesn't want to be angry at you. And if you make mistakes, he's not even angry about that.
Yeah.
He just wants to help you.
Yeah.
This went way beyond making a mistake. Because this is the whole reason why they had come there
Yeah.
over those 2 years. And they refused to do the will of God. Don't think that Yahweh is going to smile on you if you refuse to do his will. There's absolutely nothing you will find in the scriptures anywhere that will support that position.
Right.
Yet many, many people think that. They think that even if they don't do God's will and just do their own will, that he is going to smile on them. And this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We see this over and over in the scriptures. I'm going to have more to prove this too as we go along. But we need to understand this, that we were saved not just because we're so great and we deserve to live forever. Mm-hmm. We were saved for a purpose, just as these people were saved as a purpose. And that is, our purpose is to do his personal will for us.
Right.
Or his corporate will for his nation.
Right.
Right?
And these other things are perks, really.
Right.
Benefits.
And it's what he wants to do with us.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to bless us.
Right, right.
Right? But we are the ones that prevent that when we refuse to do his will. These people who refuse to enter the land, whose fault is it that he now says, well, you're not going to enter the land?
It's their fault.
It's their fault. And everything that goes with that is going to happen to them because they made that choice. It's a bad choice. When you decide that you are not going to do his will, you're going to do something else. I'm telling you now, bad things will happen in your life, and it's not his fault, it's your fault. Don't let that happen.
Yeah.
So here he says, I swore this generation, not one of these men of this evil generation shall see the good land. But then he says this, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. He shall see it. I'll give the land that he has trodden on to him and to his children. Why?
Because he has wholly followed Yahweh.
So what do we see? What is the difference about Caleb and the rest of that generation?
Caleb trusted Yahweh, he believed Yahweh, and did Yahweh's will.
That's it. That's simply it. It's very simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And Is it any different for us today?
Nope.
It really is not. It really is not. And I think the whole Christian world has really ruined a lot of believers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Christians, they think everything is all about being saved. But as we go through the scriptures, being saved is just the first thing that happens.
Right. That's that inward change,
Right.
But really, we need to walk it out.
We do, because Yahweh has a purpose. And obviously, Caleb understood that.
Yeah.
And so he stood against all the rest of that nation that was saying, no, we're not going to do it. And he was saying, no, you should do it because Yahweh told us to do it and we'll have success. But they wouldn't listen to him. But who was listening to him?
Caleb.
Okay. And I'm saying who was listening to Caleb? And that was Yahweh was listening.
Yeah, Yahweh.
See,
Yeah.
he's listening. This is my point. He's listening.
Yeah.
And friend, he's listening to you. He's listening to you. He knows what you're saying. When you're saying things that are expressing your belief in him and your determination to do his will, he hears that. And when you're saying things that undermine his will, that are words of disbelief, he's hearing that too. So I'm just saying, think about what you're saying before you say it is a really good idea.
37. Also Yahweh was angry with me for your sake, saying, You also shall not go in there. Joshua the son of Nun, who stands before you, shall go in there. Encourage him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit it.
Well, I think these are interesting verses because we have the story of how all of this happened in the book of Numbers. Moses did sin.
Right.
But here it sounds like Moses is blaming them. So is that a contradiction?
I'd have to say Moses was a man of faith. He trusted Yahweh. I mean, there's no question about that. And these people really pushed him to the limit, and he made a mistake. And it was a really bad mistake.
Right.
But he made a mistake. Exactly.
So do you think, though, that they could have been a part of that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what he's really saying.
Yeah, because if they listened to Yahweh and took the promised land, then Moses would have been in the promised land.
Exactly.
They wore him out. I mean, that's
yeah.
because he's a man, I mean, that's the best way I could put it.
Right.
Sometimes you just can't take it anymore.
Right. Righteous leaders, even somebody like Moses, can be burned out on all of the nonsense
Yeah.
that people can bring them. And this is what happened with Moses. But I think it's really interesting. He continued to lead the people faithfully following Yahweh for the rest of that 40-year period.
Yeah.
It tells you what kind of man that he was able to take that correction from Yahweh and lose something precious and still continue to serve Yahweh without rebelling.
And he wasn't in it for just going to the promised land.
Right.
He was in it because he really cared about Yahweh.
That's right. And I remember reading in Numbers where he said to Yahweh, teach me your ways. He wanted to know Yahweh. He wanted to know his ways. He had a heart connection with Yahweh, a real relationship. So what would happen now was Joshua, the son of Nun, the man who had been a servant to Moses, was going to be the one who would lead them eventually into the land. And Moses was given the task of encouraging Joshua so that he could then lead the people. So Joshua had Moses as his teacher, teaching him leadership for 38 years. What do you think of that?
That's really amazing.
It really is. I think as we read the book of Joshua and we read how Joshua behaved and the success he had, all of that good training from Moses certainly shows up.
Yeah, he was really an extension of Moses.
He was, yeah. And I think this too is a picture for us, a lesson for the remnant nation. This is how the remnant nation is supposed to work. Those who have experience with Yahweh, years of experience, should take other righteous men under their wing and simply bring them along, right? And show them what biblical leadership is, share their gifts with them so that that leadership can be extended outward. This is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
We
True
want
discipleship.
It truly is. Yes, yes, in a wonderful way for Yahweh's people. He goes on here. Moreover, your little ones, whom you said should be captured or killed, and your children, who today have no knowledge of good or evil, they shall go in there, and I will give it to you, and they shall possess it. But as for you, turn and take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. So all of this, when he's saying you did this and you did that, and you didn't go into the land and you rebelled, he's actually speaking to the children of the people that had rebelled.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And they weren't actually physically the ones who had done all those things.
I thought that was interesting, because we have to repent for the sins of our fathers.
Right.
And, it's kind of interesting because that seems to be how Yahweh really treats us,
Right. We have to understand being part of Yahweh's nation is not about us.
Right.
It's about Yahweh and Yahweh's will. And we all who are part of this nation are personally responsible for what this nation does.
Mm-hmm.
We have corporate responsibility.
Right.
And it goes through time, both directions.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying about repenting on behalf of our fathers, this is very important that we do that so that we don't carry forward the wrong things that they did.
Right.
To actually change the nation, there must be repentance.
Mm-hmm.
This must happen. So this was the situation. So now when we're standing there in Kadesh Barnea, 40 years later, after they came out of Egypt, it's really that second generation that's there. That's really what we're looking at now, that in this particular discussion, this is who Moses is talking to.
41. Then you answered and said to me, we have sinned against Yahweh. We will go up and fight according to all that Yahweh, our Elohim, has commanded us. Every man of you put on his weapons of war and presume to go up into the hill country. 42. Yahweh said to me, tell them, don't go up, neither fight, for I am not among you, lest you be struck before your enemies.
So let's just understand now, Moses is still talking to this second generation, and it sounds like they're the ones that did this.
Right.
But they're not. They're the children of the people that did this. And we need to just kind of remember that to follow along the story. But this is what their fathers had done. So let's consider what they had done. Yahweh had told them to go into the land. Mm-hmm. They refused to go, and they rebelled. Then Yahweh was angry with them and said, well, you're not going up, your generation, except for Caleb and, of course, Joshua, but your children are going to go up. So then after they hear this, they say, oh, we sinned. We're going to make it right now. We're going to go out and we're going to fight against the Amorites. Why are they doing this?
The only time I could relate to this is being a kid when you do something wrong, or you're supposed to do something, you don't do it, and then you get corrected, or now you know the punishment, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go do it now. It's,
yeah.
Once they saw the consequence, then I guess this looked like a better deal. I don't know.
In doing this now, are they doing the will of Yahweh?
No.
No, because he's already told them what his will is, right?
Right.
So they're still doing the same thing. You see, they're self-willed.
Yeah.
They're being driven by their own will in both cases, when they rebelled and now when they're doing this. They think they can fix it by doing their own will. So then Yahweh says, well, tell them don't do it because I'm not there.
Yeah.
Well, Moses spoke to them. You didn't listen, but you rebelled against the commandment of Yahweh and were presumptuous and went up into the hill country. The Amorites who lived in that hill country came out against you and chased you as bees do and beat you down in Seir, even to Harmah. So how did it turn out?
Not good. Now, was that the whole army? Was that everyone? All the fighting men that went up?
That's what it sounds like.
Wow.
That's what it sounds like, because he's not distinguishing a smaller group.
I just wonder too, like, I don't know, because just trying to picture how much of this information got down to the individuals. Obviously you would have had the heads leading them in the wrong direction. But how
Right.
about Joe? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is he just kind of getting moved forward by this big mob?
Well, of course, what were the leaders supposed to be doing?
They should be forwarding Moses' commands down.
That's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
That's what should have happened all along. So obviously, the whole nation got caught up in this unbelief
Yeah.
and rebellion, including the leaders, unfortunately. That's what happened, except for, of course, Moses and Aaron,
Right.
and also the two spies, which was Caleb and Joshua,
Right.
that were righteous. The rest of them, they all did this. And you see, what it's about is, in covenant with Yahweh, we're to do his will. We're to follow his commands. We're to obey him. When we decide to do something different, like the opposite of what he tells us, what is going to happen?
A lot of trouble.
Is he going to be in it when we decide to do the opposite?
No.
You see, I see this happen to believers sometimes. They have something they want to do that's opposite to what Yahweh wants them to do. So in their head, they tell themselves, well, if I just do this, then Yahweh is going to be with me and it'll make everything okay.
And I feel like, too, people can get into a false sense of security because they might be in Yahweh's will or heading in a certain direction and they're being blessed. And then they think, well, if I go do this other thing, I'll be blessed too. I'll be okay. No, you might end up dead. You know what I'm saying? And I think people need to have a godly fear of that.
They do. I think they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these things do happen. And we have, in the scriptures, we see this happen. And it's a shame what happened to these people. But you see, this is what happens when you essentially fall from grace through unbelief. When you will not believe Yahweh and obey him, then you are cutting off your connection with him. It's not that he's done it.
Right.
You've done it.
Right.
And if you're choosing a route that's contrary to his will, that's the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And that can only lead to trouble. Yahweh didn't cause these Israelites to be defeated by the Amorites. The story tells us what happened. Yahweh didn't go up with them because they weren't doing his will.
Right.
And the Amorites defeated them.
Right. They were on their own.
They were on their own.
And they were outmatched.
Yes, they were. And I'm saying you and I can do the same thing. We can make the same decision they made and have it end up the same way.
Yeah.
We need to know that.
Yeah.
Is not this very valuable information?
Absolutely.
Who's going to tell you this?
I'm thankful that you are.
I got to tell you. I'm afraid of this.
Yeah.
I myself am afraid of this happening.
Yeah.
I think about this because I have a purpose, just like they had a purpose. I have a purpose in my life. I don't want to take some stupid road off to the left or to the right that's going to lead me into a place where Yahweh isn't there, and then I'm a prey to the world.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I think about it too a lot.
I'm just saying, if you're a remnant person, you need to think about this
Yeah.
because you have a purpose. You have a purpose, and you need to think about this. Don't let this happen in your life. And, if you want to know what Yahweh's will is, sometimes you can get confused about that. What is the last thing you know that he told you? Do that. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It says, you returned and wept before Yahweh, but Yahweh didn't listen to your voice, nor turn his ear to you. So you stayed in Kadesh many days, according to the days that you remained. So they cried, and then Yahweh forgave them, right?
I guess he did forgive them, but they never got to enter into the promised land.
I don't see where he forgave them.
No?
Do you? It says Yahweh didn't listen to your voice.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why were they weeping?
They're weeping because of their loss.
That's what they're weeping about.
Yeah.
Do you see any repentance here?
No.
You say, listen, if you want Yahweh to forgive you, it requires repentance. You have to see that you have sinned, that it's your fault, what happened. And you have to be determined to turn around. That's what repentance is. If you do that, Yahweh will forgive you. If you don't do that, but you just cry and make a lot of noise, he can see through that.
Yeah.
Why do we think that Yahweh is stupid? That he can't tell the difference between somebody who is sincere and is truly repenting and somebody that just doesn't like what's happening in their life? There is a difference between the two, don't you think?
Yeah.
So I think we need to know that. You know, Yahweh is a person, friends. He is a person. You can't snow him. You can't, try and fool him. He's not like that. He knows what's happening. Truly, if you do the wrong thing and you truly repent and you seek his help, he wants to help you. He will forgive you. And he would have done that back then, although in this particular case, he had already made his judgment. He wasn't going to change that. But he did show them a lot of grace despite this fact, don't you think?
Yeah.
Because he didn't just kill them all.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he took care of them for the rest of their lives. So they stayed in Kadesh many days, according to the days that you remained. They were there in Kadesh for a long time, in Petra a long time. And as we've seen in those pictures, that's really a place where a large number of people could live for a long time. I think about these people, and it's a heartbreaker, isn't it?
Yeah.
What they could have done in just 2 years.
Yeah.
They could have gone in and taken the land. They could have had homes to live in. They could have had wonderful lives.
Yeah.
This was Yahweh's will for them, but they messed it up.
Yeah.
Who messes up your life?
What do you mean?
When people's lives get messed up, who messes them up?
Well, I guess you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mostly,
I mean, there's other circumstances that could happen.
right? I mean, the remnant are called the afflicted, which
Right.
means they're afflicted by other people. But even then, if you walk in Yahweh's will, he does a great deal to take care of you
That's true.
and bless you
Yeah.
and protect you even.
Yeah.
Most of our troubles of a serious sort, we bring on ourselves. And I think, that is the picture here. This is just so honest, isn't it? I mean, this picture we're seeing in Deuteronomy of what happened with Israel, it's painful.
Yeah.
And it would be nice just to go through this and say, well, that's what those people did. But if I did that, would I be serving the best interests of our people?
No, we really need to look at ourselves as we go through these verses.
I think we do.
Really need to consider ourselves.
And, when you look around you and look at various religious organizations you may have been a part of, experiences you've had, really, I think you see these same traits over and over again happening with people. That certainly has been my experience. I've also seen some wonderful, faithful people.
Yeah.
And the contrast of what happens with them.
Yeah.
People like Caleb.
Yeah.
And Yahweh watches and listens, and it makes a difference.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. Then we turned and took our journey into the wilderness by the way to the Red Sea as Yahweh spoke to me. And we encircled Mount Seir many days. Yahweh spoke to me, saying, You have encircled this mountain long enough. Turn northward, command the people, saying, You are to pass through the border of your brothers, the children of Esau, who dwell in Seir, and they will be afraid of you. Therefore, be careful. So we're in chapter 2 now, and Moses is explaining now what this second generation was doing.
Yeah.
And Yahweh told them to just bypass the Edomites because they were related to the Israelites, Esau or Edom being Jacob's brother. So another people that they were related to, and they were not to fight against them. Yahweh keeps track of all of this.
Don't contend with them, for I will not give you any of their land. No, not so much as for the sole of your foot to tread on, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau for a possession. You shall purchase food from them for money, that you may eat. You shall also buy water from them for money, that you may drink. For Yahweh your Elohim has blessed you in all the work of your hand. He has known your walking through this wilderness. These 40 years, Yahweh your Elohim has been with you. You have lacked nothing.
So this is what had happened through this 40 years. And of course, this second generation had seen all of this. They had grown up under all of this. And so they were obeying Yahweh.
Right.
Very, very different situation. So we passed by from our brothers, the children of Esau, who dwell in Seir, from the way of the Arabah, from Elath, and from Ezion-Geber. We turned and passed by the way of the wilderness of Moab. Yahweh said to me, Don't bother Moab, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of his land for a possession, because I've given Ar to the children of Lot for a possession. So again, related to Israel, these people were related to Israel through Lot, and so they were not to harass them or try to take any of their land. Would you read these verses?
The Emim lived therein before, a people great and many, and tall as the Anakim. These also are considered to be Rephaim, as the Anakim, but the Moabites call them Emim. The Horites also lived in Seir before, but the children of Esau succeeded them. They destroyed them from before them and lived in their place, as Israel did to the land of his possession which Yahweh gave to them.
So this is all the backstory of this area of Moab. And again, what we find is all of these people were dominated by the Anakim or the Rephaim. These were people descended of the Nephilim, giants, great people, giants. Now rise up and cross over the brook Zered. We went over the brook Zered. The days in which we came from Kadesh Barnea until we'd come over the brook Zered were 38 years, until all the generation of the men of war were consumed from the middle of the camp, as Yahweh swore to them. Moreover, the hand of Yahweh was against them to destroy them from the middle of the camp until they were consumed. What Yahweh said happened with that generation.
I guess that goes back to that forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
because it says that his hand was against them to destroy them from the middle of the camp.
Yes.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And meanwhile, though, he's taking care of them.
Yeah.
He's providing for them. And they lived out what is basically a normal lifespan for the most part, because these are the people who were the warriors, that generation. So these are people who, at minimum, were 20 years old. Mm. Most of them were probably closer to 40 years old at the time that they basically got this sentence.
Right.
So the oldest of them probably would have been 80, and the youngest of them might have been like around 60.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty normal span.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to them. And in that way, their life was not so terrible. But I think when you compare that life to the life they would have had they entered into the promised land and done Yahweh's will, the contrast is huge, isn't it?
Right. Now, I'd imagine that until the men of war were consumed from the middle of the camp, that would include their wives as well.
Yes, that whole generation. Yeah.
So it was a whole generation of younger people that they were relatively young entering into the promised land.
Yes.
I guess too, there wasn't a lot of good wisdom in their elders for the things that they did. So Yahweh had to really raise them up from scratch, if you will.
Yeah. Well, this is what happened. It's kind of interesting because earlier Moses had said about those people, and he's talking about that first generation where he provided leaders for them. They chose men who were wise and understanding.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that they didn't know what to do. It was that they didn't do it. See, this is the thing that we tend to think in the West, in Western countries. We tend to think everything is about knowledge, that if you know it, you're going to do it. But we don't. People don't.
Yeah.
A lot of times we know what is the right thing. When I say we, I don't, I mean our generation of people. We might know what the right thing is. We might have all kinds of knowledge. As a matter of fact, we have knowledge at our fingertips all the time, right?
Yeah.
So just having the knowledge is not enough. It's actually doing it. It's learning that lesson. And I think this is what happened with that second generation, is they had the same knowledge, they had the same Torah, but what they saw is their fathers dying in the wilderness for 40 years. And I think when they got to the border of the promised land, they decided, probably long before they got there, that wasn't going to happen to them. That they were going to do Yahweh's will. They could see what happens when you choose to do something else.
Yeah. We have all of Scripture to tell us that too. I don't remember what verse it is, but it tells us that these things are written down for our example, that we don't do the things that they did.
Exactly. This is exactly true. Well, I have a few more things that I'm wanting to go into, but Mike, I really enjoyed our discussion, and I enjoyed the things that you had to bring into it. But I have a few things I'd like to share with everyone. As a matter of fact, the verses that Mike was just mentioning are from Hebrews chapter 3. And these verses in Hebrews chapter 3 deal directly with what we've been talking about tonight, what happened with the Israelites. So I'm going to take a few minutes to read that because it sums up for us the lesson we need to really get from this. Hebrews 3, beginning in verse 7. Therefore, even as the Holy Spirit says, today, if you will hear his voice, don't harden your hearts as in the rebellion, like as in the day of the trial in the wilderness, where your fathers tested me by trying me and saw my works for 40 years. Therefore, I was displeased with that generation and said, they always err in their heart, but they didn't know my ways. As I swore in my wrath, they will not enter into my rest. I think this is so interesting because it's saying the same thing like what I was sharing. The problem was not in their mind. It wasn't about knowledge. It was that generation erred in their heart. Their heart did not know his ways. Neither did they really long for his ways. And it was because of this, because they were busy with their own ways, that they didn't enter into Yahweh's rest. Beware, brothers, lest perhaps there be in any one of you an evil heart of unbelief in falling away from the living Elohim. But exhort one another day by day, so long as it is called today, lest any one of you be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin.
For we've become partakers of Messiah if we hold fast the beginning of our confidence firm to the end. This is not really a verse that is liked by people who believe in once saved, always saved. They don't like this very much. But these verses mean a lot to me. We're warned against developing an evil heart of unbelief. Unbelief is, in fact, your worst enemy. As we saw with that first generation of Israel, unbelief robbed them of the promised land. It robbed them of a wonderful, purposeful future to die in futility, wandering around in the wilderness. Unbelief is a monster that can totally destroy your life and your future. And that's why these verses are warning us from a heart of unbelief. And basically what it's saying is don't let that happen to you. You see, if you just live your life, but you don't really guard your heart, you don't really guard your faith, there are so many things that are working against you and against your faith, against your belief. You can fall into this sin of unbelief. And as it says here, it's very deceitful. This sin is very deceitful. We can think that we have faith, but then when we meet the test, it isn't there. And it says here, we have become partakers of Messiah if we hold fast the beginning of our confidence, in other words, our faith in him, firm to the end. This is not a sprint. This is really more of a marathon that we're in. We have to have our eye on the goal, and we have to make it all the way. We need to do the will of Yahweh all the way. Now, you may fall down along the path. You may make some mistakes. Yahweh is there for you, but you must continue to believe, and you must continue to keep that faith in him and move forward with him firm to the end. And you notice we're talking about Messiah here. You see, this is not just like, oh, that's the Old Testament. Messiah is involved. We have his help. But even so, we have this admonition. For who, when they heard, rebelled? No, didn't all those who came out of Egypt by Moses? And yes, it was virtually all of them rebelled. With whom was he displeased 40 years? Wasn't it with those who sinned, whose bodies fell in the wilderness? To whom did he swear that they wouldn't enter into his rest, but to those who were disobedient? We see that they were not able to enter in because of unbelief. You see, unbelief is what leads to disobedience. If you believe in Yahweh, and because of that faith you seek to do his works of faith, then you're not going to enter into disobedience. The unbelief comes first, and then the disobedience follows. That's why the big thing here to avoid is unbelief. That's what this is telling us. Let us fear, therefore, lest perhaps any one of you should seem to have come short of a promise of entering into his rest. Does it tell us to fear? You know, I think this very verse is very opposite to what I've heard from many people. Don't fear. No, do fear. Do fear your own heart, friends. Do fear that this could happen to you, because the more you actually have that healthy respect in your heart to realize that you have a part to play. It's not just Messiah, although he's done the heavy lifting. It's also for you to believe, and that belief needs to actually be manifested through your actions to rest from your own works. It goes on, for indeed we have had good news preached to us, even as they also did, but the word they heard didn't profit them because it wasn't mixed with faith by those who heard. So they had good news. Certainly it was good news that they were being freed from slavery, that they were having a covenant with Yahweh, that they were going to have the land given to them, all kinds of good news. But they didn't have the faith, even though they heard the good news, and they were a part of his people. So this kept them from entering in. There remains, therefore, a Sabbath rest for the people of Elohim. For he who has entered into his rest has himself also rested from his works, as Elohim did from his. Let us therefore give diligence to enter into that rest, lest anyone fall after the same example of disobedience. Remember what I was saying about the fact that those people were self-willed. You see, that's what they were set on, is doing their own will, figuring it out and doing what they thought they should do. And that's what it's telling us we need to rest from. We need to rest from our own works of doing our own will and just enter into that Sabbath rest of Yahweh where we're doing his will that he puts before us. And if we have that mental attitude and we actually give diligence to do that. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that we're monitoring ourselves. We're looking to see if we're doing our own will or we're doing his will. And believe me, you know the difference. In your spirit, you know the difference. You need to be watching for that. Be diligent about it so that you enter into his rest and you rest from your own works. This is what it's telling us. Now here's the really encouraging part, because I need this and I know you do too. It says, having then a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Yeshua, the Son of Elohim, let us hold tightly to our confession, that is our confession of faith. For we don't have a high priest who can't be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but one who has been in all points tempted like we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore draw near with boldness to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and may find grace for help in time of need. So this is saying something so different than how people normally think about grace. It's a very comforting message. You know, if you're anything like me, you're very aware of your own faults and shortcomings. And we all have them. For some people, that becomes a real obstacle for their faith. And they fall into a pattern of thinking, well, I just can't do this. And that's unbelief, friend. Because Yahweh has made the provision for you to be able to do it through Yeshua Messiah. That's what this is telling us. And Yeshua is very sympathetic to you because he was a man on the earth. He experienced what it's like to be a human being. And he did that without sin. But, you know, the Yeshua you read about in the Gospels, he's wanting to help every person who has a righteous heart, every person that wants to draw near. And it tells us here, draw near with boldness to the throne of grace. We do have that sacrifice of Yeshua, and we can receive mercy when we fail. And it's not just so we can keep failing, but it's so that eventually we can overcome and have the victory. And it says, and may find grace for help in time of need. You see, grace isn't about just forgiving you for everything. Grace is for help for you to be able to overcome the obstacles in your life. That's what the grace is for. And when you come to a time of need where maybe your faith isn't everything that it should be, or maybe you're struggling with something, what the grace is about is helping you to overcome that. And it may take you some time, it may happen quickly, but that's what the grace is about, is helping you to be an overcomer. And that's the purpose of the grace. But the grace is there for you through Yeshua Messiah. So you need never feel, well, I can't do that, because with his help, you can do that, and he will help you to overcome. And in a way, this is analogous to the promised land, isn't it? That's where you want to get to, that place where you have overcome. And eventually, not only will you enter the land if you're one of his remnant in the remnant Exodus, but more importantly, when he comes, you will be there with him. One of those who are ruling and reigning, because you kept your confidence firm to the end. So in the beginning, I raised this question about an enemy that is even more powerful than Satan, who could totally derail your life. That enemy, friend, is unbelief. Do what I do. Talk to Yahweh frequently and ask him for more faith. I do that very frequently, always seeking for more faith, because I see this, friends. I see what's unfolding before us, and I'm telling you, your faith is going to be tested. Your faith will be tested. Every person on this earth is going to be tested. And we need to develop more faith, and we need to do what that generation of Israel didn't do. We need to follow through all the way with Yahweh, all the way doing his will.
After considering that first chapter of Deuteronomy, I'm sure you'll agree with me that unbelief is a monster. It can totally derail believers, like it did that first generation of Israel. We need to fight it. We need to realize what a monster it is, and we need to fight it. How do we do that? My newsletter today has a number of very key steps we can all take to defeat that monster. And I would have included them in tonight's presentation, but it would be just too long to take in that material. So I want to encourage you to read that newsletter and take in that information, because it has a lot of key information to help you prepare, to build up your faith, to avoid that monster of unbelief. You can read it or listen to the audio version at this link. Eliyahu ben David, all one word, lowercase, .substack.com. That's where the newsletters are. And if you're already signed up, you'll be able to go right to that message. Otherwise, you may need to sign up. If you're not signed up already, this costs you absolutely nothing to do. And then all of these newsletters are available to you there. Now let's pray. Father, what's really scary is to think about the fact that we don't always know how important certain moments in our lives really are. It's because we're doing other things, we're thinking about other things, and one of these important moments comes up, and we don't recognize how big it truly is. And Father, I think this happened to that first generation of Israel. I think they had no idea what a big decision they were making when, out of fear and unbelief, they turned away from entering into the land. Yahweh had done everything he could possibly do to prepare them, and yet they obviously did not take that seriously enough. They were caught unprepared. That's on them, not on Yahweh. And unbelief overcame them and totally changed what their future was meant to be, because they were meant to enter into the land. Yahweh had a wonderful, victorious future for them. And instead, that generation died in the wilderness. Father, we don't want to be like that. And we need to see that even though we may have other things in our life that take our attention, that we're at a very important moment right now where we need to decide what our life is truly about and whether we are fully in with your program regarding, Father, your remnant nation and the remnant exodus. I want to pray for everyone who's hearing this message and really all of your remnant to come awake fully to that reality and to see that we are facing up very soon to the biggest challenge that will ever come into our life up to that moment. We're coming to a time, Father, where we will need to decide, are we going to stay here in the nations with everything that's going to be poured out on the nations very soon? Or are we going to trust you and enter into our land and enter into the place of safety you have for us and enter into our purpose, Father, of being a people for your name, that your great name may be known in the midst of your remnant people in the land. That's what's before us. So, Father, I pray that you will help us to see how important this is to come to grips with that monster of unbelief and to vanquish that and to move on as overcomers. Father, I just pray for your people. I know you have a scattered people, and that's the problem. And we need to be drawn together, Father, into your nation where we can fully prepare for what's ahead. Help us to be bold. Those people who should be leaders, have them step up. Help them, Father, to take that step and not hold back. And I pray right now that I will get phone calls and messages from those brothers that, okay, I'm ready, let's do it. Because the time, Father, is short. Thank you, Father, for caring about us so much that you continually put out the things we need to hear in order to prepare us for what's ahead. Father, we glorify you. We glorify your great name, Yahweh, and we want to see your name magnified throughout the earth in the midst of your people. We know this is your will because it is stated in all of the prophecies, and now is the time. We give you glory in Yeshua's name. Amen. Now, stick with us for this wonderful new song.
You brought us out with a mighty hand, broke our chains and split the sea, led us on through the deserts and kept us close so faithfully. Fire by night and cloud by day, you guarded us along the way. Now we stand where fear must fade. Now we're told, don't be afraid. The land is good, the word is clear, but promise dies when fed by fear. Go up and take the land. Yahweh goes before you. Do not fear, the giants stand. Yah's mighty hand is for you. He who bore you through the wall will not leave you here to fall. Trust the voice that called you, child. mountain. Murmurs rose inside the tents, as though his love had turned to hate. But unbelief can blind the heart to leave the promise at the gate. The land was near, the food was sweet, but fear turned faith into retreat. Go up and save the land. Yahweh goes before you. Do not see the giant stand. His mighty hand is for you. He will bear you through the mile. Will not leave you here to fall. Trust the voice that's called you child. Our God is able over all. We face our giants even now. The threats are loud, the road is steep. But Yahweh who kept his people then is Yahweh whose love will never sleep. Not by breath